Welcome to OneFortyOne New Zealand Kaituna Sawmill. OneFortyOne takes health and safety seriously and has a duty of care for you, all our employees, and everyone who enters our site. Our company's safety pledge is home safe and well. This means your health and safety is a priority. We want to be sure you understand what is expected of you when you are at Kaituna Sawmill. Please pay attention and listen carefully. If you're not sure about what is expected of you after you've watched this video, please seek clarification from your manager. Every incident that occurs at Kaituna Sawmill is seen as a failure of our systems and processes. By paying close attention to this video, you can help us prevent incidents from happening. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this induction video. As soon as you arrive on site, you are required to clock in via the electronic login facility before proceeding onto the site. There are electronic login facilities located at the front office and at the weighbridge office. These provide an important means for tracking people who are on site in the event of an emergency. When you are preparing to leave the site, you must also use the electronic facilities to log out. This is important so that we know that you have left and do not try to locate you on site in the event of an emergency. Everyone working on site must comply with the site's personal protective equipment requirements. This is to provide protection from the key hazards that we have identified on site. You must wear a hard hat, hearing protection where indicated, safety glasses, a night standard high-vis vest, and safety boots. Gloves will be required in some instances, depending on the activities involved. If gloves are required, there will be signage informing you that that is the case. There are many hazards associated with sawmilling, especially if you are unfamiliar with particular parts of the operation. When on foot, always use the designated walkways going directly to and from the areas you're required to access. Deviating from the designated walkways may put you in a vulnerable position where there is a high likelihood of accident or injury. Please be diligent, stay in your designated area and use the walkways. You or the staff member who is accompanying you must also carry a radio so you can communicate your intentions to other workers in the area, especially forklift operators, if you are required to leave a designated walkway. Radios can be collected either from the front office when you sign in or from the engineering department. Also, our forklifts are equipped with a hit-not proximity warning device, and when you go out into the yard, you must wear a PAD or personal alarm device. This warns both a forklift driver and pedestrian when they are in the same area close to each other. The alert is heard within the forklift and on the person wearing the personal alarm device. If you are coming to the site in a vehicle, enter the site via the main entrance with your vehicle headlights on. Use your indicators as you travel through the site. This indicates to other mobile plant your direction of travel. Your speed must be limited to a maximum of 10 km per hour. In all instances, you must give way to forklifts, loaders, and log trucks. You must stop until the machine operator has waved you on. Always park your vehicle in a safe place away from operational areas. It's important that you understand some of the hazards that you need to be aware of at a working sawmill. Kaituna Sawmill is a manufacturing facility that has numerous hazards. These can range from minor to potentially fatal if the interaction between the site plant and people is not managed carefully. Throughout the site, you will see clear signage to advise you about specific hazards or no-go areas. Always follow the instructions on the signage. If you're not sure what to do, keep clear and take advice before proceeding. Machinery that's moving, such as forklifts, loaders and trucks, and the log, delivery and timber dispatch area is the most significant hazard on site. That's why it's so important that you keep to the designated walkways and give way to mobile plant at all times, especially when leaving the walkway. Always assume that the operator has not seen you until they acknowledge your presence and signal you to proceed. or until they have driven clear of your location. Always take a safe position and only proceed if you're absolutely sure it's safe. Dust can be a problem in certain areas, especially around the planer and fuel storage areas. Prolonged exposure to wood dust in particular is a known threat to your respiratory system. Avoid these areas where possible, or wear a dust mask and safety glasses if necessary to minimise any problems. Noise is a hazard that is particularly associated with our industry. Hearing protection is advisable in operational areas, especially where prolonged exposure is part of your job. If in doubt, wear hearing protection at all times. Uneven ground is a common hazard, and you should be aware of where you are walking. The ground underfoot may not be what you're expecting, especially around stairways or muddy areas. Care should be taken when accessing the site or going into operational areas to limit the chance of a trip or a fall. In a busy work site like ours, there is a lot of stationary machinery and power tools that should be avoided unless using these as part of your purpose for being on site. Other hazards include boilers, hot surfaces, steam systems, and log decks that are operated remotely. A lot of the plant on site is unattended or operated remotely and can start without warning. To ensure your safety, keep clear of any plant unless otherwise authorised. If you're undertaking a task at Kaituna, it's important to remember to use the right tool for the right job. If a tool is damaged or is not appropriate for the required task, do not continue until the correct tool is located and the task can be completed safely. Manual handling is a constant hazard across the site. Because we are a manufacturing site, staff are continuously interacting with product to move around. The risk of strains and sprains and becoming struck by or caught between boards is high. There are some practical steps you can take to minimise the risk of strains and sprains, such as warming up the muscle groups you'll be using in your work at the start of your day, and taking micro breaks to stretch throughout your day. Keeping mentally alert is also important. Good nutrition, keeping hydrated, and ensuring you have a good 8 hours sleep will help you manage fatigue and keep you fit for work. Machine entanglement is another common hazard across the site. There are numerous pieces of equipment that could be potentially fatal for you if you become entangled in them. These areas must be isolated prior to anyone going near them. We'll talk more about lockout procedures for isolating areas on site shortly. It's also important to be aware of hazardous substances on site. Although there will be signage and safety data sheets to cover these substances, caution and appropriate PPE should be used in all instances. If you're not sure, seek advice before proceeding. Working alone generally occurs out of normal production hours. Working alone is where line of sight and the normal means of contact with others are not available. It is important you carry a man-down alarm or have a regular reporting in procedure with a 141 staff member. Working at heights is not a frequent occurrence for the majority of workers. However, there are multiple locations on site where access requires working at height procedures to be followed and permits to be completed prior to work commencing. At Kaituna Sawmill, we operate a permit system. This helps us manage tasks safely. We'll now provide you with some details about how the permit system works and how you can use it. You will often be confronted with a situation where a log or some timber has jammed or crossed up or a piece of equipment has failed. If you're dealing with a situation like this, where possible, always use a pike pole or push stick to resolve the situation so you don't have to enter a danger zone. If this is not possible, lock the area out, test for isolation, get your lockout peer reviewed and enter the zone to clear the problem. In more complex situations where conditions or a breakdown has occurred that is beyond the capability of a pike pole, take care to follow the requirements of the safe operating procedure that applies to the work area concerned. If the task falls outside the scope of the safe operating procedure, undertake a pre-work risk assessment to identify hazards and establish which of the two permit processes needs to be completed before the task is started. The two pre-work processes are either a Take 5 permit or a Job Safety Analysis, or JSA. A Take 5 permit is used for day-to-day tasks where there is a breakdown or blockage that will still require lockout for access, but are unusual or out of the ordinary and require a bit more thought before starting. A Job Safety Analysis, or JSA, covers activities that are more planned and unusual tasks where a hot work, confined space, working at heights, sprinkler isolation, cranes or trenching permit is required before the task is started. The purpose of the permit is to ensure all potential hazards have been assessed and suitable controls have been put in place to prevent injuries. There is often pressure to get tasks completed quickly to minimise the impact on production, but taking a considered approach to resolving an issue is important. By completing these forms, you will identify any permits, PPE, isolation, lockout, housekeeping and clean-up requirements, plus any communication needs, and identify any other unexpected hazards. Although these processes may seem arduous, it is important to go through the risk assessment thoroughly to protect yourself, other workers, and the equipment. If you identify a hazard or sustain an injury, even minor, or you see property damage on site, this must be reported as soon as possible. Incident forms are located in all areas. Sprains and strains are the most common injury. Early reporting of such incidents is important, even if it is the smallest of niggles. This provides us with the opportunity to manage the injury and prevent it from turning into something that requires you to take time away from work. It's important that you know what to do if an area needs to be locked out to make it safe for you to undertake a particular task. You may be on site to undertake a job such as clearing a blockage or repairing a fault, which can't be done from outside a lockout zone. When an area is locked out, that means it is completely isolated from all energy sources before any work commences. This involves the identification and isolation of energy sources which include electricity, hydraulics, pneumatics, steam, pressure vessels, and gravity. No individual shall enter a lockout zone without first locking out and testing for zero energy. All lockouts must be peer reviewed without exception to ensure the process has been followed correctly. Protocols and policies covering lockout procedures are clearly documented for all areas. Failure to follow these processes may result in death or serious injury. Please make sure you read and follow all lockout instructions and follow the instructions of the staff member who is accompanying you on site. As you will realise from having watched this video so far, OneFortyOne has a strong commitment to health and safety, risk management and injury prevention. In this next section of the video, we'll talk about our drug and alcohol policy, housekeeping and our environmental standards. OneFortyOne has a drug and alcohol policy that applies to everyone on site. Being under the influence of or in possession of drugs and alcohol is not permitted on site. Testing is undertaken to ensure staff members are complying with this requirement. Smoking and vaping are also discouraged, but designated areas are available outside the break room for these activities. If you smoke, please be considerate of others and use the ashtrays provided. This keeps the area clean and tidy and makes it a pleasant place to work. Kaituna Sawmill prides itself on the presentation of its site. Ensuring everything is tidy and in its place helps us to maintain our site's health and safety standards. If you're involved with any production or maintenance activities, please help us to maintain a clean and clear work area. A good approach is to collect rubbish as you go. This means that things like offcuts, sawdust, welding rods, cable ties and wiring offcuts do not end up in the waste system or blowing around the yard, potentially contaminating the chip or making the site look untidy. Kaituna Sawmill has a strong commitment to maintaining and improving the environmental footprint of our business. You have a part to play in this by ensuring you dispose of any chemicals, oils, plastics and other rubbish in an appropriate manner. There are rubbish bins and containers for most hazardous waste located around the site. Please make sure that any rubbish or hazardous waste is disposed of in an appropriate manner. We'd now like to share some important information about our evacuation procedures. In the event of an alarm activation, a continuous siren will blast and the emergency will also be called over the radio on all channels. You must evacuate immediately to the emergency assembly point outside the main office. Take the safest route to the evacuation assembly point and register your presence with a warden. Wardens can be identified by their white hard hats. First aiders have a sticker on their hard hat. It is very important that you register with a warden. This is because someone will be required to go looking for you if you are recorded as on site but haven't been accounted for. All personnel must remain at the assembly point until clearance is given by the site warden or general manager. At Kaituna, there are 2 first response emergency kits. The first response kits are located in the first aid room, located in the portacom opposite the staff break room. These kits include a defibrillator, adrenaline for responding to an anaphylactic reaction, and an oxygen bottle. There are also several first aid kits on site. First aid kits are located in each work area and all forklifts have a first aid kit. OneFortyOne expects your cooperation and that you will comply with all the requirements outlined in this video. We would encourage you to watch this video once a year so that you can keep its contents fresh in your mind and in case we have updated it over the last 12 months. Please respect the site rules and company policies. They are an important part of getting you home safe and well. We would appreciate any feedback or observations you may have that may help us improve our work environment and our safety performance. Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen to this presentation.